Good day, doodlers. Welcome to Draw Cartoons. Today I'm going to show you how to draw the famous web-slinging hero, the one and only Spider-Man in his Far From Home costume. This is a video I've been really looking forward to doing as I'm a lifelong fan of Spider-Man. Thanks for the suggestion, Xavier. Make sure you watch the whole video because you're definitely going to learn something new today. As always, you're going to need a pencil, paper, an eraser, and a Sharpie to go over your sketch with. Let's go! Let's get started. But first, if you want to learn to draw the fast and easy way, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. Let's begin. As always with your pencil, let's begin with the shape of the head. So we're just going to draw a tall oval like we always do. You can go ahead and draw it in one big swing of your pencil if you want. I'm going to draw it in lots of small strokes because I just find that a lot easier, but go for whatever works for you. Then when you've drawn that shape, kind of looks a bit like an egg, cut it right down the middle like this, and then keep that line going, and keep it going and keep it going until you get to about here. That's more or less 4 heads in height, maybe 3.5. This one's actually 3.5, yeah. About 3.5 heads in height in total. And then we're just going to draw a line across the bottom, and that's the floor. That's what our character is going to be stood on. We draw that so that we can make sure we have the feet even when we draw those in a moment. So draw a line. This line here, this guideline that we just drew, you want to cut that in half, okay? So about here, draw a small line here, and that's where the hips of our character, Spider-Man, is going to be. So once you've drawn that, we can, again, we might as well quickly just divide the head in half across the middle, because that's going to show us right where the center of the head is, right there. And now we'll quickly draw in a couple of curves for the neck, right underneath the head, just a couple of small lines there. That's all you need for the neck. And now we can start building out the shapes of the body. So right underneath that, you want to draw a line across for where the shoulders and the top of the torso are going to be. And then bring this down, and as you get towards the hips, just bring it in just a little bit like that. So it's a little bit thicker at the top. I'll show you what I mean when I draw this side of the torso as well. The torso is a little bit thicker at the top than it is at the waist. And then we can just kind of bridge this across here to just really kind of show us where the hips are of this character. So once you've done that, we can just quickly box in the shapes of the legs. Keeping it simple for now, we'll add some shape to them later, but just going to draw legs that come out a little bit, bend at the knee just a little bit here. And then before you reach the floor, you want to stop for where the ankle is, and then we're going to curve a line across and then down like that for the front of his foot. So obviously we're going to do that on the other side now. So I'm just showing you that again, coming down from the waist towards where the knee is. It's roughly halfway down this space that we have here. I'm going to bend it just a tiny bit. Sometimes the subtlety can really kind of help make that pose look really cool. And then I'm just going to bring it out for the foot there and curve it down towards the floor. Now we'll just quickly draw in the shape of the inner leg. So before I do that, I'm going to draw a line across here just to show where the legs separate. There we go. And then either side of this central guideline here, either side of this, we're going to draw the inner leg. So here's the one on the left. Again, just kind of following the shape of the leg that we've drawn just a moment ago. Okay, and right down to the heel there. And again on the other side. So just kind of following the shape of the leg there, trying to keep it so that the leg is the same width all the way along. Like here is like more or less the same length as here, for example. Okay, so we're actually going to add a little bit of definition to those legs later, but right now we're just kind of getting the shape down, and we can add all the details to it later. So last thing to build before we really get into the detail of our drawing is the shapes of the arms. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to come away from here, a line that goes to no further than the waist. If I just draw a dotted line across to show you, no further than the waist, okay? And the same on the other side, just kind of curves away from the body, and I'm just going to pretty much get it level with the waist there. And now for the hands. Now I like to do the hands at this stage because hands are really difficult compared to the rest of the drawing, and if you can do this, you can definitely do the rest of our drawing here. So I'm going to start with this one, because with this one we're going to do something a little bit more interesting. We're going to put the hand in the pose or the position that Spider-Man has his hands when he shoots his webbing. So I'm going to draw a line across the end of the arm here for the wrist, and then starting here, I'm going to draw a line that does like a kind of almost like an S-shaped curve that goes out, then in, and then up again for the thumb. I'm just going to finish off that thumb there. And then from there we can start drawing the rest of the fingers. So one sticking out like this, and then 2 that are curved towards the palm. So just 2 very small sausages sat side by side like this, and then a pinky finger sticking out like this, and then just bring it back into the wrist. Okay, if you can draw this, you can absolutely draw the rest of the drawing, which is why we tackle this first, because I guess it's kind of encouraging if you can certainly get that right. Might take a few tries. Don't worry if it does, because it's very likely it will. Hands are very, very difficult. But yeah, that's kind of the pose that Spider-Man puts his hand in when he shoots web from his wrist here. Or at least traditionally it's usually the pose he goes for. So I'm just going to thicken out that arm now by drawing a line either side of the original guideline that I drew, and making sure it all kind of matches up with the wrist there. So if you do that too, you can actually get rid of this middle guideline. We don't really need this anymore. It was just to kind of guide the shape of the arm. So guess what, I'm going to do it all again on this side, but this time I'm going to draw the hand in an ever so slightly different pose, just a more relaxed pose, not really doing anything with this hand. So similar start, just kind of drawing a curve outward for the thumb. This time as I approach the palm, I'm going to draw a small bump in the middle of the palm there, just to kind of show how that thumb connects there. And then we're going to draw in 4 fingers, so I can start here where this line kind of tucks in. 1, 2, just going back and forth here. 3, and 4, there's the pinky. And just bring it back into that wrist. And once that's drawn, we can again thicken out the shape of the arm, bring it in towards the wrist here. Okay, and again, just like with the legs, we're going to add a little bit of definition to that later. This is just guidelines. So speaking of guidelines, all our guidelines are pretty much done, so we're going to get into drawing all the details now. So we'll start with the head. Now we can use this kind of cross-shaped guideline here to really help us draw the eyes properly. So starting here on this line, I'm going to draw a line that heads towards the outside of the head and up, and then comes down through the line and meets back here. Okay, I'll just show you that on the other side again. He has got 2 eyes like most superheroes. Up to the edge of the head, down like this, just kind of swing that line down and make sure it meets up towards the middle there. Now around each of those eyes, it's got like a big kind of black patch going on, so we'll draw that in now. We're just basically going to follow the shape of those eyes while keeping a little bit away, but as you get into this region here, you want to flick it up into kind of like a horn shape. Okay, and then follow it back down and make sure it meets up there on the inside. Okay, and guess what? Yep, we have to do that on the other side too. So following the shape of the eye, and flick it up at the end, and then bring it back down, just kind of follow the shape of that eye, and back there. So now that you've drawn that, we'll add a bit of detail to the face. He's got that kind of web shape pattern on his mask, so we'll draw that in now. So actually this guideline right in the middle is already kind of acting like one of those lines, so we can kind of build around this. We'll draw one here that's heading towards the center of the face, and then another one here that again is kind of pointing right towards that middle point there. So on the other side of the head, again, we have the same thing going on. Just a couple of lines going towards the center of the face. Okay, and now we have to do the same on the bottom because this bit's looking a bit there. So again, just drawing these lines that kind of curve a bit, maybe one more here too. Okay, I'm just going to draw 3 on each side, keep it nice and simple. It is fairly simple in the actual design, although it varies quite largely from film to film and even cartoon to cartoon. But that's a pretty good starting point, almost looking a little bit like a basketball really at the moment, but we'll fix that right now. What we want to do between each of these lines is draw a bit more webbing that has a slight curve like this in between each one, so it's just dipping down a little bit in the middle if you can see that, but it kind of bridges those lines together. Okay, so it might take you a bit of time to do that, but it's going to look awesome if you do. And on the bottom side, it's kind of reversed, so I'll just show you what I mean. This line, the dip is going, the dip is going up towards the center of the face like that. So if you just kind of imagine that the webbing is coming from this central point here, then you can just kind of, I guess, autopilot it and just kind of draw those patterns in. Maybe a bit more here if you want to add a bit more detail. This bit here is looking a bit bare, so I'll add some there. So go to town until you really kind of think it looks good. And yeah, the head of Spider-Man is already done, so we're going to move on to the body right now. So let's jump right in with the spider pattern on his chest. So right about here, you want to draw a big kind of blob. Just like that, big black dot like that. And then a smaller dot for the head of the spider right on top of it. And now we're going to draw 8 legs coming out of it. So 1 angling up like that. Another one angling up and a little bit more outwards. And then 2 more, they just kind of point in the opposite direction and a bit more towards the center of the body. So again, on the other side, try and make this as symmetrical as you can. That means having it look as similar on both sides as you can, because it'll certainly look really, really good if you get that sense of symmetry right. Okay, and then 1 more just kind of pointing more towards the middle like that. Might take you a few tries to get that spider right, but if you do, it's going to look awesome. Okay, so now there's more of this kind of webbing pattern that we did up here. There's more of this going on here. But before we get to that, just need to quickly add in a few details so we know that we're not going to go anywhere that we shouldn't go with that pattern. So let's draw a small curve here, and then another one right on top of it for the shoulder. Okay, and the same on the other side. Just 2 curves. Okay, so just to give you some idea here, this bit is red, and this bit is a darker color. It's kind of like black or a very, very dark blue. And same on this side, red and then black. Okay, so now let's draw in where the pattern ends on the chest. So coming away from the side here, and then cutting down along the torso, and it just kind of heads off here right above the hips. And then we'll just repeat that on the other side, just like this. There we go. So this is all red, this bit here that I'm colouring in, this is all red, and then this is all that kind of darker colour. So finally we'll just add in the separator for the boots, or his shoes, I guess they're more boots really. So just a curve across the shin there, and the same on the other foot. And at the very end of each of the feet, there's a small lip that kind of curves up from the sole. It's only subtle, so it's just a small bump like that. And now we know where to draw all our webbing, so we're not going to go outside of the lines too much here. So we're going to do what we did with the head again. The webbing is all going to be kind of heading towards the head like that though, in this kind of pattern here. So I'll just show you what I mean. So I'm going to draw in a line here, and then another one here. And don't worry about lines overlapping a bit. At this point you are working with a pencil, so anything that doesn't look right you can always erase it later, or there's lots of those pesky guidelines sticking around that we can kind of get rid of with a pencil, with an eraser rather. So just 4 lines like that, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did here. I'm going to kind of bridge these together with lines that are kind of curved towards the head, okay? So just kind of repeating that down the body, lots of this going on. Okay, actually along the middle there I might have, it's a good job working in pencil, I might have made a mistake there. I've kind of bridged this over like that when really what it should be doing, I'll just show you, it should be curving like that, so we've got that line in the middle. So good job working with pencil, you can very quickly rectify errors like that, but when you go over it with your Sharpie later, that will be very easy to fix. You just need to remember that it dips down the center there. So now for these shoes, a bit easier, it's just kind of like lines that come down and point towards the end of the foot like this. Okay, so again on the other side, just kind of following the shape of the foot and then towards the very end where the toes are. And then you can kind of draw a bit more of that webbing pointing upwards like this. Just small curves in between those lines, bridging them together, very Spider-Man-esque. All of his outfits have had this kind of webbing pattern going along them over the literally decades that Spider-Man's been around for. He's a kind of an age-old hero. He's gone through many design changes since I've known him, or known of him I should say. I don't know him personally. So at the ends of his gloves, here, and looking at his hands, there's a small curve separating the fingers from the hands. The fingers themselves are red, and then the actual hands are black. So there's just these little separators there. So we'll just draw a small curve at the end of each finger. And now there's another small curve here right across where the elbow is going to go. Okay, just a small red stripe. That's all we're really going to see of that because of the way his hands are positioned. And now I'd say, actually all the kind of core details of our character here are done. I'm actually going to add a little bit more of that webbing detail here for the neck. and then just a few more curves there along the neck. There we go. So now that we've kind of figured out the details of the outfit, I'm going to work a little bit on the definition, because it doesn't look very superhero-y to me. Don't know about you, maybe you're happy with it, but I'll just show you quickly how to do some definition. So we'll start with the legs. All it really takes is, for the inner leg here for example, we're just going to draw it kind of bumping outwards a little bit and bring it in where the knee is, like that. And again, we're going to do the same on the calf this time. Okay, so if you can see what I've done there, I've thickened it out just at the top here and just kind of here in the middle of the leg. And that's going to have a fair amount of impact when we go over that with our Sharpie later. The character's going to look a little bit more muscular. So again, just kind of curving that out, tucking it in where the knee is here, and then bumping it out a little bit more here and bringing it back down to the ankle. So it's only a really, really subtle difference. It might not look that different to you now, but if you follow that when you go over it with a Sharpie, it's going to look pretty good. So now the arms need a little bit more. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start the shoulder. I'm going to round the shoulder off a little bit here. Just kind of adding muscles to the character now. That's basically all we're doing. And then we'll add a tiny bump here and a tiny bump here, making sure it slims out at the wrist there. So on the underarm rather, we have to do the same. It kind of bumps out here and here, and it goes a little bit thinner in the very, very middle of the arm. Now if you're struggling with this, don't worry, this is quite advanced, and if you don't want to do it for your drawing, that's absolutely fine. It's just kind of like an extra tip I wanted to add on to this video. But I'm just going to do the same on this side. Just going to kind of bring it out for the bicep here, bring it back in for where that stripe is, out a tiny bit, and then right back in for that wrist. And again on this side, out for the tricep, that's what the muscle's called, kind of dips in where the elbow's going to go, where that stripe is, and then out and in just a little bit. Very, very subtle, very, very tiny curves, but you can probably already see that's made a big difference to the shape of Spider-Man's arms. He certainly looks a bit stronger now because there's actually some kind of muscle definition going on there. So this torso is looking a little bit flat, so I'm going to give it the same treatment, give it a few more curves. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to bring it in a little bit, just a tiny bit. You see, like, there's barely any difference there, but it really does make a difference in the final image. And then bring it out a tiny bit for the waist. So I'm just kind of following my guideline, tucking it in a bit as I approach the waist, and then going out just a little bit like that. Okay, so that's kind of it for definition at this point. Grab your Sharpie. We're going to go very carefully over the lines you want to keep. So guidelines like this one, for instance, we don't want that. We certainly don't want this big line going down the middle there. We don't want this one or this one here. Don't need any of those guidelines anymore. So yeah, go over your drawing with your Sharpie, all the lines you want to keep, and you'll end up with your very own awesome drawing of Spider-Man's suit from Far From Home. Go carefully over your sketch with your Sharpie. This is a great time to check for any last mistakes in the sketch as you go and fix them before you finish your drawing. And there he is, the only hero who can do whatever a spider can. Well, actually there's a few others, but that doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Don't forget that you can share your artwork in my fast-growing Discord channel. I would be over the moon to see your Spider-Man drawings, so hit the link in the description below to join the Discord and start sharing right away. Remember to like and subscribe for more videos. Until next time.